Hi, welcome to Ideas at Work and Beyond. I'm Macklin Reed from the Ridgefield Press, acting as a guest host tonight. This is a call-in show, and you can call in at 792-4101, and we'll try to take your calls. We're having a conversation with the candidates tonight. We've got First Selectman Rudy Marconi from Ridgefield. He's a four-term First Selectman, former member of the Board of Selectmen, and a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. He's a Democrat. Your wife Peggy is a realtor in town and chairwoman of the Relay for Life.
Correct.
And we have Scott Mason, the vice chairman of the Board of Education. He's the Republican candidate, father of four, and you got kids in the school system?
All the schools.
Four, right?
Yeah, elementary, middle, and high school.
All right. And your wife Jennifer is a teacher at Farmingville?
Kindergarten teacher.
All right.
God bless her.
I thought I'd just ask each of you why you're running. You want to start, Rudy?
Sure. Thank you for being here tonight, and to the producers of this show for having us as guests and the opportunity to give the people of Ridgefield an idea of why we, myself as the incumbent First Selectman, especially want to run for First Selectman again. Having been the First Selectman for 8 years has given me an opportunity to really begin to get a lot of work done. And I say begin because there's still a lot of work left to do. Over the last 8 years, we've accomplished a lot through the building of the schools, addressing our roads, and many, many other items that you're going to hear much more about tonight. But there's still a lot to do. And what we have on the plate right now involves a lot of planning for the future, specifically the downtown area, not only with respect to traffic, but parking. We need to put a plan together for our downtown area. That is critical, and we have begun a meeting with various heads of various commissions in town to talk about that and what direction we would like to see our community go. We're meeting, in fact, we had a meeting today with Mr. Heiser from the Board of Finance and Dr. Lowe from the Board of Education, along with Keith Miller, the chairman of that board, and the respective financial people to talk about better communication between the boards in town. Myself as First Selectman, Marty as the board chair for finance, and Debbie all agree that rather than waiting until the March-April time when we begin our final deliberations in the budget and it becomes somewhat contentious, if we can sit down now and actually get a better feeling for where we want to be, where we see the community going, what are the demands of the educational system, because it is a very, very important component of our community, no doubt about that. So I'm not going to take too much time right now, but that's a little bit of why I want to continue to be your First Selectman. I enjoy the job. I put in a lot of hours, and I would rather be nowhere else than sitting in that office on Main Street. Thank you.
Scott. Thank you, Mac. I also would like to thank the producers of the show, Mac, for hosting it. And
my pleasure.
And giving us the opportunity to talk to the people of Ridgefield. I've been a member of the Board of Ed for 4 years. I thoroughly have enjoyed it. I've been vice chair for the last year. My attention has basically been focused on the children in the education system. Like you said earlier, I have 4 kids in the school system, and that's where my focus has been. I have seen things that have bothered me in the last year or so, year and a half, concerns that I have, and I'd like to broaden my scope of things, specifically, and I don't want to go into a lot of detail now, but I like to see long-term planning for a lot of issues: the library, the fire department, the police station, the athletic field, also the schools, the building projects to be specific. They started 4 years ago. We would like the revenue. I'm sure the town would like the revenue to come back that we get, the reimbursement from the state. 4 years is a long time to wait for that. There's some problems with the ventilators. I know lately that problem has been addressed a little bit, but they're still loud, and the education folks still have a concern over that. And then, of course, the one big bump in the road facing the town is Bennett's Pond. That's been ongoing for the last year and a half. We've been in litigation. We need to come to some kind of head on that and decide what's right for the town, what the past couple of weeks lawsuits that have been decided have brought up front and where we need to go. First selectman needs to speak to the planning and zoning people. The planning and zoning people need to understand what's good for the town so we can get away from the lawsuits and, the hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees that we've paid. And I'll stop there, and like Rudy said, we could have further conversations later on.
Okay. I wanted to start off asking you a question about Route 7, in part because a lot of our viewers are from Danbury and Bethel, as well as Ridgefield. And Route 7 is being made into a 4-lane in the section between the Route 84 near the Danbury Airport down into Ridgefield by the intersection of Route 35. The first phase, which is a $28 million phase 1, should be complete very soon, and then they're going to go into a $35 million second phase. It'll take probably the next couple of years and take it all the way up to the airport. I want to start out I'll ask you first, Scott. Are you at all concerned that commercial development will follow along the path of the widened 4-lane between Ridgefield and Danbury? Is that?
I don't know if I'm concerned. I think it might be a little bit inevitable, if you will, when we develop into 4 lanes. I think 4 lanes is needed. If anyone has gotten stuck on Route 7 during rush hour and even just on a Saturday afternoon, the accidents, which there seem to be plenty of these days, put that to a stop. Commercial development could happen. I'm not sure. It seems every time they make a highway, it happens everywhere else. So.
Okay, we have a phone call.
Okay.
Let's see if we can take a call. Hello?
Hey, folks.
Got a question?
Hello.
Yes, how are you guys doing tonight?
We're good.
We're doing good.
Very well.
Just for the viewers out there, I grew up in Ridgefield, so I know the background on both these individuals. And I tell you, these 2 individuals running are really tremendous people, and they care a whole heck of a lot about Ridgefield. But now my question is to the person running against Mr. Marconi. What would you do differently on taxes in Ridgefield? Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hang up and listen to your response off the air. And God bless, folks.
Thank you.
Can I respond to Route 7 at some point?
Sure.
I mean, if you want to go to taxes now, but we kind of left it hanging.
Let you finish, give a thought on Route 7, and then we'll have Scott
okay.
take up
Do you
the
mind?
taxes.
No.
Okay. All right. When Route 7 started several years ago, the planning started when Gene Eriquez was still first selectman of the city of Danbury. And when the Governor Rowland had decided to scrap the Super 7 and go back to the existing 7, we called for a meeting. I called for a meeting in Danbury to meet with area legislators and the DOT to redesign the existing job that they're doing now. And the statement made at that time, if we go into redesigning for safety, since this could possibly be the road to Danbury for the long distance, for the long future, we wanted a median down the middle. Myself, Oswald Ingles, our planning director, several of us went. The reason they said no is because they had to hurry up and get it going. That job did not, that was in 1999, 2000. That job did not start until, 3 years ago? And it is 2007 now, so in 04. So 5 years later, the job started. The engineers designed a road, according to the DOT officials, that will last and handle traffic till the year 2014, at which time, based on their projections, that road will be saturated once again with traffic. And my issue is that here we are in phase 1, just completing, entering into phase 2, which will take another 3 years. So if you add, we'll be in 2010 to 2011 before that road is finished for anticipated usage up to 2014. That is a waste of taxpayer dollars, I think. The DOT moved way too slowly. With respect to a build-out of commercial development, there are only a couple of properties along that route that are not owned by either the state of Connecticut, the town of Ridgefield, or the city of Danbury. And one is at the Piat property right at Bennett's Farm Road, where there's a traffic light. Another one down a little further across from where Pepperidge Farm or Stars Plain Road is. It's for sale now. The Indian Trading Post, and then several properties further north up closer to 84. So I don't see a build-out of commercial development, but I do see a project that's taken way, way too long to complete.
Okay, we have another call, and we'll take that, but then we still got to get back to the other guy with the question on taxes. Hello, may I help you?
Good evening. I have a question for the two candidates,
Okay.
Mr. Mason and Mr. Art Marconi. There's a new educational technique that's been used predominantly in Pennsylvania, but it's all over the whole country, called cyber school. It's sort of like homeschooling under supervision of a cyber school teacher that handles 400 to X amount of hundreds of children. Would you gentlemen approve of some sort of a tax credit, property tax credit of $1,000 or $3,000 credit if the parents were to withdraw their child out of the public school system and enroll them either the new technique, educational process called cyber school, or the old technique called homeschooling? It sounds like an excellent way of reducing school enrollment, hence you're able to reduce the bigger expenditure to your town. Would you be in favor of that? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Well, we'll give you a first shot at that, and then we'll go to Scott.
This is the first I ever heard of a cyber school for elementary or high school. I don't know if you've discussed it all in the Board of Education arena, but I would have to do a lot more research prior to making any comment on this. And the second part of my comment would have to do that this would be a question that would go into the arena of the Board of Education, the superintendent of schools, and work on it and study the issue and research it and make a recommendation. The Board of Selectmen, the first selectman, which is the office that I hold, that Scott is hoping to hold, my job is not to decide educational issues like that in terms of curriculum. So I don't see where it's important to respond to that right now. If it were to come out and the Board of Education members all agree that this is a way to go and it's something we should do, I would listen to their recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
People can homeschool now,
they
don't get a tax credit.
Well, we have a problem right now with someone who came into my office. They homeschooled for quite a few years, and their child went back into the high school at a 10th grade, and that person is doing very well, an honor student. But yet they are not being given credit for 9th grade, so therefore they do not qualify in terms of having the proper amount of credits to graduate. If you're going to homeschool someone, should they be given credit? If they're allowed to enter, they do the work well. You can't penalize them, I think, at that point, but that's an issue that exists right now.
Real quick, Matt.
Yeah.
Rudy's right. I have heard of it. We have not talked about it on the Board of Ed. That would be something for the superintendents of schools to look over and then bring back to the whole Board of Education and have a discussion. It's too early. My only concern about the tax credit part of that is if we were to do that, would we have to do it for kids that go to private schools, that go to Fairfield Prep and go to Immaculate? Would that go, and what would that do to our overall tax base, and how would that affect the town as a whole? We'd have to take
an open Pandora's box.
Yeah.
Okay, we got some more calls. Let's take them. Yes, you're on the air.
Okay. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. I have a question for Mr. Mason. I would say that Rudy was, in essence, the author of the bundle, the school bundle for the regional schools.
Okay. Rudy led the bundle.
All right.
It was a $120 million package, and
90
I'd like
million.
to know what you would do that would exceed what Mr. Marconi instituted for the bundle.
Okay. Scott.
I'm not real sure I understand the question. If he's asking me if I would have done it the same way, yes, I would have. But here's the problem that I think that it's brought to us now. When we did the bundles and we agreed to do all the schools, and all the schools needed to be done.
So you support the general project?
I supported the general project. I voted for it. And I thought we needed it. We hadn't done anything in the schools for years, 20 years.
Okay.
So I didn't think we needed that. I don't know if we looked far enough ahead and put a plan a little bit in action. What are we going to do for anything else that came up in front of us? Our police department, the library, things that we talked about earlier. And I don't know if that inhibits us from doing those things now when we're all talking about reducing the tax load that we have in our $15 million in debt. Now, having said that, I don't know in this world which we live in and where there's a lot of special interests for a lot of different projects. If we had gone ahead and said, you know what, we're going to do Ridgebury School now, and just do Ridgebury School for an example, would everybody have voted for that and supported the building of Ridgebury School if their school wasn't benefiting from that? And I have my doubts if that would have happened. So that's why I agree with the way that it was done, but I think it might...
It was coalition built.
Coalition built. I think that might be holding us back now a little bit now for further development.
There's no doubt that when we did our pro forma, and we did a 10-year pro forma so that we could show the people the impact on the taxes, and after the first 5 years, believe it or not, we were right on target with where we were going. The last year or so, the Board of Education budget was higher than what we had originally forecasted, but there have been modifications and, of course, new forecasts done. With respect to the police department, the fire department, the library, these are all issues that 10 years ago, and that's when it was, and now we're coming up on 10 years ago, were far from anyone's mind. We had no intention of looking at the police department, the fire department. Although the fire department, if you look at the history of the town, has been discussed for ever since I was a kid.
Right.
We've looked at sites all over town. The volunteers wanted a new fire department. The paid department wants a new department. We've been looking at that. Do we need it? And one of the things that we discussed at the Board of Selectmen's meeting not too long ago when we were discussing the library is that our responsibility as the Board of Selectmen is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of Ridgefield. So with respect to that, our priority would be to, do we need a new police station today? There's no doubt it was, the last time anything was done was in the 70s. It definitely needs an upgrade. It's an old building. We've exhausted the various possibilities that you could look at over the last couple of years and have come up with a good plan to move forward that I think the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, everybody is on board with this plan. But you do need to plan and look ahead continuously. And we will do so with the fire department. We've discussed that, but everything has to take its turn.
We got the police department, the fire department, the library, and there's the soccer club and various other groups that are lobbying. I understand they're going to bring back a lobbying campaign. Bring back a lobbying campaign to.
You have visits from all the special interest groups.
Well, my question to you guys is, with that stuff in front of us, is there anything in that list that either one of you guys say, well, we shouldn't do that, or let's put that at, what's at the top of the list, what's at the bottom?
Well, right now, at the top of the list is our debt service. We need to take a look at that. And although Moody's has maintained, I didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
Well, one of the things that the bond rating bureaus look at is the wealth of the community and your ability to pay. Whether you take on the debt or not is a decision of the voters of the town. We've been told that time and time again. And a decision as to whether or not we want to move forward with more debt. I personally would rather see our debt service come down to a more acceptable level. We've said this many, many times. I said it to the Board of Finance and various people in town. We need to get our debt service down before we start entering. That's why with the police station we're looking at grants and various ways of funding that project, most recently with the possibility of selling the leases on the cell tower and generating $1 million there.
Let me ask Scott, and then we got some calls waiting. Sure. Is there anything on that group of stuff that you would prioritize down, or?
Well, I think, Mac, I'd get in and I'd make a long-term plan, and it's one thing to have a long-term plan within the Board of Selectmen and the finance boards in which you work. I think I'd like to see it opened up a little bit broader and let the town as a whole just understand what road we plan to go down in what year and how we plan to do it, if we plan to go down any road in any year and do any of those projects. They're all nice things to have, but are they affordable? The debt service is definitely too high, and we need to bring it down. But if we concentrate just bringing the debt service down, which a lot of people would be in favor of, that means these projects for them, for what we're looking at now, we already have architect plans for a police department on board being
And we got the
being
soccer
done
club
out
gearing up, and the library's having meetings.
and moving ahead.
So where do you prioritize?
Well,
Who do you say yes to
Where are we going?
or no to?
I would think you would say now you have to decide if it's debt service you want to reduce first, then for the next couple of years we need to do that. It's like last year when the town really concentrated on lowering taxes and bringing them down, and they recommended a cut to the Board of Education's budget.
No, a cut to the proposed budget.
To the proposed budget, if you will. I was upset as a Board of Ed member when the question for the athletic fields appeared on a referendum. Now, I'm a big sports guy and been involved, and I think we need those fields. But at the time, if we're trying to reduce the tax burden, if that's what we were really trying to do last year, and I think that's what was the intention, then you can't put that question on at the time we're trying to do this. I don't think that was fair.
Okay,
was a
we got
request of the
some more
Parks and Rec.
calls.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
gonna give
I
this guy,
understand that.
Sorry for making you wait. What's your question? Hello?
They gave up.
Must not have been that.
Somebody there? Hello?
Hi, my question is for Scott Mason.
Okay.
Scott, as you know, in 2001, the electorate of Richfield voted to take the Dennis Pond property for economic development, and subsequently the Board of Selectmen, headed by Rudy Marconi, overruled that referendum, vetoed it, essentially. If you're elected, will you ever override a referendum? Thank you.
You need to look at what's best for the whole town. No, I would not override a referendum question that the town people respond to in the majority. Now, I'm in for Bennett's Pond, if we want to go down that road one second. The town has a plan for 7 corporate lots on Bennett's Farm now. Now, with recent litigation that's come forward.
We don't own the property.
Right. We would have to purchase the property. I understand that. But with recent lawsuits that have just been decided, that's going to be a tough road to hoe here and go down right now. I think a compromise, even though I would prefer corporate development, that has been my stance and that is still my stance. But a compromise of some kind now, I think, is where we're going to have to go. We got to stop the lawsuit that's been going on for a year and a half, and the money we're spending. And it's discouraging to me that, we could end up in a place where we knew we were going to end up back before, end up having to do what we could have done a year and a half ago.
Well,
You lost me on that one.
Well, when not this proposal that Eureka put forward, but the one before this,
that we negotiated.
That you negotiated, and the planning and zoning voted it down, age restriction 5 to 4. We could very well end up doing that now, after going a year and a half.
That's in the planning and zoning arena.
Right,
now.
I understand that. But I think as first selectman, you need, or I would need, or whoever held their office, to really push planning and zoning and say, in the best interest of this town, take your personal interest of what you would like to see away, and what is the best interest of Richfield. We need to solve this problem now. Now, I know Rudy did not have a direct effect on that vote. He was not able to cast a yay or nay vote on that.
I don't have any veto powers.
No, I understand, but I owe power of persuasion.
Rudy pushed compromise and led a whole. I mean, you put together some compromise plan that got voted down by the town. Well, there was one that got voted down by a referendum too.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We have tried to compromise this for years. What is in front of planning and zoning now is their decision to make. Should the first selectman, I ought to hear Scott say, should the first selectman play an influential role in planning and zoning? I have never been an advocate of that, and that may be a difference between the two of us. Planning and zoning for years, having been a member of that commission for 4 years, there are 9 people that work very hard looking at the future of the planning and zoning of our community to maintain the character of our community that we have today, and they're to be thanked for a lot of their hard work. As far as their decision, and when it comes to planning and zoning or this Eureka, I'm not about to go into the planning and zoning arena making any statements, especially given the fact that we have ongoing litigation on the south side. That litigation is because we have taken step forward to take the property. Eureka took this action several years ago to block us from taking the property by eminent domain.
I see we have another call. I would like to go back to Bennett's Pond after we
You
take
bring
this
us
next
back
call.
there.
Yep. Okay. Hello?
Hi,
You have a
Mike.
question?
For First Selectman Marconi,
Okay.
and I'm wondering what makes him think he has the right to actually have
The same
overridden the referendum by the people.
Okay, why did he
Same
override the...
question.
What gives him the right? The town charter does not give him the right. He has no right. He said he had the right to do it because the town charter says
Yes,
the
I had the right to
First
do it.
Selectman has the right to settle lawsuits.
Excuse me, I did not say that.
Well, what your complaint is that you don't like the fact that the original referendum to purchase Bennett's Pond was not, he didn't go through with the second half of buying Bennett's Pond?
No, that's not quite right.
Okay.
Actually, the town of Richfield, as you know, voted to take it for corporate development and other municipal purposes.
We voted to take it
and
for
then the First
municipal
The
Selectman
South.
made a
South
settlement
side.
agreement with the owners of the property to endorse a residential plan.
Right.
And the First Selectman said that he had the right to override the referendum and settle lawsuits. To settle lawsuits because the town charter says the First Selectman can settle lawsuits.
I did
Well,
not
he's
say
proposed
that.
a couple of compromise
I did not.
plans.
But the town
I think she
charter
was-
says specifically that the only way to settle a lawsuit
The board, the
If it
charter,
happens
the
to a
town.
referendum, it goes to
Excuse me.
referendum.
Excuse me. The town charter specifically states that the only board in town that has the right to settle any lawsuits is the Board of Selectmen. The compromise.
hold on.
Excuse me. Let me finish. The compromise that was arrived at was by a full vote of the Board of Selectmen, not the First Selectman.
Also, the selectmen do have a right to settle lawsuits, but
That's what I said.
the prelude to that part in the town charter says, subject to the necessary town approvals or town meetings, that's when the Board of Selectmen can do it. If an ordinance is set up by the electorate, by referendum, the only way to override that referendum would be to go back to referendum.
Are you talking about
Going
ordinances now?
both ways.
Well,
You said
the
an
point
ordinance.
is
We're
that
not talking about
a
an ordinance.
compromise
Actually,
was
an
well
ordinance
proposed and
is
taken
not
to a
called
referendum.
anything.
Right?
Go on.
A compromise was proposed and taken to a referendum, and it got voted down. And now a second compromise was proposed and went to planning and zoning. And that you object to that? Him proposing
Actually,
a
what
second
happened
compromise?
was the second compromise by the Board of Selectmen
Right.
overrode the referendum because it stopped the town from going on and pursuing the corporate development.
Well, the town has to take the property to
Essentially, it put the
pursue that.
referendum on hold. He essentially vetoed it, is what happened.
Well, that's your
So my
interpretation,
question
and
to
you're
Scott
entitled
Mason
to
was
it.
to find out whether he would ever attempt to override a referendum such as Rudy Marconi did.
I take exception to your accusation, and you're totally wrong. Thank you.
Well, let's let Scott just get a last word in on that. Do you?
I would not do that. I would not override.
Nor did I.
Or as we said.
Do you think that I did?
Let me try to get to the heart of the issue of Bennett's Pond, which is we took the north, and it's now open space. It's a state park. There's the Bennett's Pond South remains. It's 155 acres. There's a affordable housing application before the Planning and Zoning Commission by the Eureka,
The owner.
which owns it.
Correct.
And there's simultaneously there's a
Please hang up
The
and try
beginning-
your call again.
there's the beginning of a you've made an initial step towards an eminent domain proceeding against them, which is been held up in court.
That is the case in federal courts.
Do either of you guys think that we should go back to an eminent domain proceeding?
We're
and stop
proceeding. We're in court right now, and that's what people don't seem to realize. That litigation is proceeding. The judge has established a calendar with dates that our attorneys have to be prepared to meet. There's nothing that's been put on hold with respect to the eminent domain or the federal litigation. This application that's in front of Planning and Zoning right now is in addition to our legal battle on the south side.
Which would you rather see? Some kind of deal that involved they get an approval and get to do some housing there, or the town taking the property?
One thing that people have said that, as Scott has said, he'd rather see a corporate. We did a lot of work on this with our tax assessor, Mr. Al Garzi, and came to the clear conclusion that an affordable housing, not affordable, an age-restricted
Age-restricted housing.
housing development would generate far more revenue than any corporate development. coming out of the box from year one through infinity, because the residential versus corporate is a very interesting scenario. We all have complained in the state of Connecticut about residential property tax carrying the burden, and there's not enough corporate in our state, and we need to bring more and more in. That's true. But when you look at an age-restricted development, that it has no impact on the schools because of the age restriction of 55 years or older. And this is exactly what the Board of Selectmen had come to a compromise on. If we wanted to generate revenues on the south side, which is what we want to do, generate revenues as per the Board of Finance back in '01, then one of the best ways to do it was with age-restricted housing development. It's being done throughout New England. Ridgefield is one of the few towns left to really do anything in that area. The demand is there, the popularity is there, and that demographic is growing. My demographic, my age group, 60 years old, is growing. The demand is there, and what I'm saying is that if we want revenues, which I think that's what people mean when they say corporate, we want revenues without impacting various other components, I'll say, it's important to move forward on this and come up with a settlement.
Scott, do you have a...
I would only want corporate, because then I think the town of Ridgefield, the merchants and stuff, might get a little success and a little business out of that. Now, I'm not saying they wouldn't with age restricted.
Right.
They would have to do that too, but I think it might be a little bit more, and I know that's a concern that everyone's been facing with downtown businesses and the shop in Ridgefield signs that we now have.
Okay, now, I want to get back to the caller that asked about taxes.
Yes.
The town approved a $116 million operating budget last year. $73 million of that was for the schools. $43 million was for all the other town departments. The Board of Education asked for a $5 million increase, and the Board of Selectmen recommended that that be reduced by $1 million. And the Board of Finance followed that recommendation and approved only a $4 million increase, which was about a 6% increase, 5.87%. Scott, you supported the initial request by the school board.
Yes, I did.
And you supported the $1 million cut, which ended up
reduction
happening
in the proposal.
Okay.
Right.
Why should the schools have spent another $1 million? Had another $1 million to spend?
The problem in education is there's always good and then better ideas out, things that you can do and that you can change all the time to make what you perceive your education process better and improved. As I was sitting on the Board of Education, my primary goal was to improve and better the education process, and I voted for that. As a town, as a first selectman, your concern has to be the whole town. Now, we have also gone forward with math pairs was a request, guidance counselor at the high school.
Those are the things that ended up being cut.
Those are things that were removed from the original budget with $1 million decrease, and we tried to bring it up, and we've been told no. The Board of Finance wanted things that wouldn't increase our budget year to year, and they've asked us for capital expenses
instead
and we are now going through that.
Well, now, Rudy, you supported the $1 million reduction.
Yes.
And are you also part of the majority on the selectmen that has rejected the school board's request to spend, since all that budget, another $600,000 has come in from the state?
There was an increase in ECS, $595,000.
Educational cost sharing money.
Right.
And the school board said, let us spend some of that on the things we had to cut because of the $1 million reduction.
Right.
And the Board of Selectmen said, no, we'll let you spend that money on...
There was no vote in the Board of Selectmen, but it was a consensus that we preferred that the monies be spent on capital items. Every year we're presented a list of capital items, as we were this past budget cycle, of items that need to be addressed, whether it's oil burners, windows, asbestos removal of tiles, asbestos tiles, whatever it is. It's put in by the facilities manager. Obviously, we can't do all of that, and we, this year, I think, did about $600,000 in capital improvements. The Board of Selectmen, in looking at the ECS, said, we agree that why don't we use it to help do the rest of the list that we had come in. This way, we're addressing our
Well,
facilities.
why not let the school board decide how to spend the education money?
Well, they came to us and asked us because they need a referral.
No,
from
they
us.
came and said, we want to spend it on the math paras and the...
Well, the reason was because, as stated, I don't know if you
And
were
the
there or
guidance
not,
counselor
the concern was that we would be inflating the budget, and then next year's increase would be whatever it is on top of those additional monies being spent.
You didn't want to increase the operating budget?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
I would have said, if it was me, I think I would have said, well, you know those things that you're asking for, guidance counselor, et cetera, are going to increase your budget not just this year, but every year.
Bigger base.
Bigger base. Make sure you are prepared to keep your base relatively close to what it is. If you truly think, as the education experts, that's what you need for the betterment of the children and the education process that we're going through, go do that. But let us remind you that in times where we're all concerned about tax dollars and our debt service of what we have, we need to keep that budget constrained a little. We can't just grow that all the time. So,
Okay.
so I think that's what I would do. And my other argument, flip side of that, Mac,
Okay.
is if that $595, and there's argument from people on both sides of the fence on this, was to help to reduce taxes,
Okay.
then the $1 million cut was the purpose of that too, or decrease, I should say.
Well, that's what during the
not-
meeting,
right.
I asked the Board of Selectmen members to think about that.
We've been asked to take a short break.
We have.
We
Yes.
have.
Really?
So we're going to take a short
We can
break.
do that.